What's going on, men? Geronimo 22. Going to do a little video here for everybody. We're going to talk about the cover six call, which is probably the biggest call out of sub package. All right. And in the game, it is called, or I'm sorry, in the playbook for Fangio, it's called nickel stuff, right? And it's pretty generic. Roy and Lou, okay, the call goes away from the nickel, which is basically the cover two side. We're going to call that away from the nickel. Nickel always aligns to the passing strength. We're playing cover six. Now, from my experiences with Wade Phillips, and he comes from the same generation as Fangio, and there might be some overlap here. But the big thing that they had, at least Wade has, and it seems like Fangio has it too, is an ability to play quarters or cover six, but not be 100% matching principles. Okay. And how do I know that? Well, when I look at the playbook, I see the Mike and the dime rules, right? And I see that it says middle hook away from the Roy Lou call. Okay. So whoever's there, the Mike or the dime, one of the inside backers, whoever's away from the Roy Lou call, whoever's to the quarter side, play middle hook. It doesn't say three receiver hook, and it doesn't say anything about quarters. To me, that means it's just a spot drop. Okay. And that's a big thing. If you look at other positions, though, it's a little bit confusing here, a little bit to me, because it does say for the nickel, he is playing a quarter flat technique. Okay. So that means he should be using his regular matching rules. Very interesting. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is later on, we're going to talk about another version of cover six he calls pack, which most people know from the Rex Ryan system. I'm pretty sure that's where everybody knows the word pack from. Six, right? Six, cover six. But in that system of calls, there's more flexibility to play, use more of the tools, the coverage tools. If you look here, there's nothing about coverage tools except read, okay, to the half field side for the corner, for the safety, possible read, okay? Or Patty, I'm not sure what Patty is, but I think that has to do with a specific situation of going up against empty, where you have two wide receivers out there. You don't always have to play cover two. So let me just kind of go on to the next page here and just kind of talk you through a little bit about 3x1 and 2x2. All right. Let me try to zoom in too so we can all see this a little better. All right. So 3x1, that's the big baby right there. Over here, 3x1, we got three receivers to the left. So we're playing quarters technique over here, and we're playing half field. Okay, it says squat, so I'm assuming that's just generic cover two, cloud flat in Madden. Okay. Again, the middle hook player, an H. So he's not a three receiver hook player. And the one thing to me, if you're going to play that, I don't think the nickel should be also a quarter flat defender. I feel like it's just not, they don't vibe together. I would just put him into a curl. Okay. Um, if I went back and showed you the Wade Phillips playbook, you would see it would just say curl for the nickel. All right. Now, the reason why that's important is, three verts, right? So we get three verticals. How are you going to play this out? So, and this is the beginning. This is another important point. This is the beginning of the teaching of the playbook. This is the very first formation, that first coverage of quarters or six that he's installing. So when you install things out as a coach, you want it to build. You want to build upon things. So he's going to show stuff. Okay. And then he's going to show, I'm pretty sure he's going to show quads. Okay. And then he's going to talk about one of his combination calls. All right. And he puts those two together. Then he goes into pack. And then he goes into a combination call where he uses pack and quads together. So it's kind of building out. How do you play this? How do you play three verticals here? Well, I don't know what the rules are. The way I was taught is if we're going to play regular quarters over here, right? The corner is going to play one, the safety is going to play two, and who's going to play three? That's always the question. I used to have to teach this linebacker, usually it was the dime and it was the safety, to run with three. Okay. Just like I would do in Madden to you guys when I talk about playing empty, right? You got to run with three. If three goes vertical, you got to take them, especially if two goes vertical. So that's pretty much the way you would teach it. I'm not sure how he's teaching it, right? Now, the other thing that you could do is potentially just turn and just understand Even in his playbook, he didn't talk about tricks or poaching number three. And you can't necessarily do that. Why? Because you're playing over here half field. So you can't take that safety. He has a responsibility. So he cannot help out to the strong side. So the only other answer that I can think of, and especially as we talk about in the Madden world, is just playing regular zone coverage. In my terminology, okay, with Wade Phillips, we use the word area. I know people use this word for different things, but it meant just play an area. An area basically just build this safety here that when you get these verticals to stay between the two, I used to teach the guy to play a little closer to three, right? Because that's an easier throw and the ball has a shorter distance to travel. And then also your corner is aware that we're playing basically one quarter technique. He's playing two. All right. So he's not just locking on the one when he hears area. He's basically trying to midpoint one and two. So we're just playing basically zone drop over here, and your nickel's playing curl flat. Now, what is that in Madden? Well, that's basically just turning match off, right? That's me calling cover six and just turning match off, right? These guys are just spot drop. You can get away with that. It's not great maybe versus all plays, but it is actually pretty good versus four verticals. Okay. And it kind of also helps you versus another play that people like to run, this little angle play, right? So he's running a quick little 5 yard in number three, and number two works outside, comes back in. People love it, right? Pretty sure in today's world they call it what do they call it? St. Louis, not St. Louis. They have a name for it. I'm totally forgetting it, but it has something to do with the Rams because they ran it so much back in the day. I know Shanahan took that name. It used to be called Zampese. Some people call it short post. Different names for it. But the point is, this coverage right here. I remember Wade telling me if you play zone drop here, people think that you're playing regular quarters. And if you're playing regular quarters technique, your three receiver hook player has to go at number three. And that's the lesson we had to teach our nickel that if three goes away, you got to jump inside number two because a lot of people like to run that little angle route right there, and that's a problem. But when you run just spot drop, he three goes in, he lets it go. He as in the Mike or this linebacker lets it go. Now he can get into this window to intercept this ball, and we used to do that a lot with Wade Phillips' defense. But I'm thinking that this is the beginning teaching of this defense as well. So what I'm going to propose to you is potentially playing spot drop cover cover six versus 3 by 1 as one of your tools, one of your I would like to say tools. Are you going to do this a lot? Maybe not. When we get into other another version of this, we can play regular cover six, and we're going to play palms over here now, right? Or in this system, they're going to call it a read or a book. I'm sorry, over here, book to the left. We can save that, but then we can also just basically play stuff. So if I say we play stuff versus 3 by 1, you're going to just basically put your guys into turn match off, or you could do the coverage adjustment, play the sticks that turns match off as well. Okay, so if you didn't know that, the only bad thing is you lose the core, you lose a little bit of your core cover two jamming over here. Don't like that because if you turn off match, this guy just kind of floats, and people can kind of just bang a ball out there if they realize that. If you mix in regular quarters, I mean, you mix in regular cover six, or just without any adjustment cover six, later on we'll talk about it, pack, or some other coverages, and people won't know. I don't think people are going to be able to know that you're going to play stuff. Now, how often are you going to play stuff? Maybe it's just once or twice a game. Okay, so it's not a call that you're going to use. It's when you're in your game planning mode, they like to run verticals, and maybe you want to play it a different way. We're just playing spot drop. Maybe it's the red zone. Okay, maybe you want to do that, or maybe you think somebody's going to try to throw a slant. Maybe you want to play spot drop. Okay, so just think about it like that. Now versus 2 by 2, we're pretty good just keeping the call on. Okay, so we call cover six in the game because it's 2 by 2, our quarter side over here to the right of screen is just going to play regular quarters. We don't have to worry about any adjustments because there's no three receivers there. And then on backside over here, it's just going to play half field. And as long as this guy is playing cloud flat, he's going to get hands on one. If you're a cover six that you're using, I think I'm going to make sure I get one that has cover regular quarters in there. He might be a soft squat corner too. So you have to just realize what that is, okay? The very last thing is we could potentially they have something called read. It's going to pop up a lot. I think let me just go down to the bottom. I think it's versus, if I'm not mistaken, versus empty formations 3x2. Let me see if I could just scroll up here real quick. If that's where they probably would use a possible read. There we go. So what's happening here is that if we are playing our Roy, so this would be the half field side over here to the right because it's away from the nickel. It's the weak side. Anytime you get two wide receivers out here to the weak side playing half field, sometimes could be a little bit of a pain, right? So if you wanted to change it up, this is where in the Madden terminology, palms would be pretty good over here, okay? Because it helps basically, it really allows, I won't go into the reason why, but some people like to play palms to two receivers, okay? Originally, it was for certain routes, really against this guy, help him out, but there's also the idea of people running bubbles and screens and things like that later on. Would you want to use this in Madden? Maybe. Okay. The only way I would think of being able to actually get away with this, technically, you know what? I already know the answer. If you were to do this, right, you would play palms. That's it. You would just call palms. And it would just turn this into our quarters coverage across the board. Okay. Again, we don't have any games over here, so it's not consistent with that. But when we get to the next one called pack, you just play palms to this and you're perfectly fine. So that's the answer there. So don't worry about the possible read. Really, in general, read is not a big thing for this coverage. Now, they do have this, okay, versus bunch formations. He did give them some tools to use box or buster, okay, and that's important to know. So this is a case where if you called cover six and you was going up again, you want to call stuff, right, in his terminology, but it's against bunch set, you're going to now have to get into your box buster rules, okay? Or bingo rules if you want to start even taking it to another level. But the point is that is there for you. That's easy. But I wanted to explain overall why we're doing this. We want to have two different versions of cover six. We don't want to just play cover six one way. We want to have stuff. We want to have pack, and we're going to talk about pack right now. Just so you can see here. You see how he teaches it? So stuff is here, then quads is here, which is really the same idea of playing quarters, okay? The only difference here is that you do have your linebackers playing regular quarter technique. So quarter hook is what they call it, three receiver hook. So they talk about that. And then they have Zeus, which is a combination call we'll talk about later on, where you're trying to put that half field side to a specific receiver. Okay. And that would be, so it would either be cover six or cover nine based off of where the receiver is. And if he's if he's lined at the slot position, it would turn into quarters or quads. Okay. So that's the reason why they taught it like that. All right. So that's there. So now all of a sudden pack shows up. Right. So let's zoom in on this bad boy. Pack shows up. And now it says four-man rush, right? Rotation away from the nickel. Same idea. All right. They use a different term, Richie and Lenny. Okay, for that's just a directional term to say that, to the right we're playing cover two. If it's Richie, to the left we're playing cover two. If it's Lenny, okay. But you can see, as I was saying, the inside backer rule now. Look, three quarter they call it, right? So away from the call or to the quarter side, they have a quarter flat, three receiver hook. I'm sorry. All right, so that's that. Now also the nickel. He's playing read curl. Why is he calling it read? Well, that is exactly, basically, it doesn't matter if it's 2x2 or 3x1. The nickel is going to be involved in some sort of read. So that means they're playing palms. Okay. 2x2 palms or 3x1, we're playing palms. Okay. So it doesn't matter. The nickel always is going to be in a palms type of mode. Okay. And then that's that. So we do have the tools down here too. So if you look at this, we have all the tools in there, which we didn't talk about tricks because that popped up in the quads coverage. That's just basically Porter's technique where the backside safety comes over and poaches number three or plays number three if it's a vertical. But we have new things in there called book, area, right? We have new things in there versus 3x1. that we didn't have in the other coverage. That's why I think the other coverage is there for a reason to keep it simple. All right. So let's move on to some of the pictures again. You look at nickel pack. So nickel pack now over here on the left hand side. Let's go to actually here with 3x1 to start. Go 3x1. I like to start with 3x1. Okay, so 3x1 over here. We see all this information on the page, right? So it starts off with the read side, right? We have the read corner, right? We have a 3/4 player. So we have all the different things we can do. It says possible book. Okay. It says possible tricks. It says possible area. So by game plan, we can do different things. Now their area is not my area that I explained earlier. I'm pretty sure their area is what in the Saban language they call stump. Okay. But I know book is what most of you guys probably know if you've been studying Saban's technology or his terminology technology is stubby, okay, which is the same thing in Madden as palms. Okay, so if you've just been studying Madden, because you're not playing Madden, right? I'm playing palms, and that's just a read right here of your safety, your nickel, and your linebacker playing 3/2. Okay, and they're reading the releases of 2 and 3, and we've talked about that at length. If you need more information on that, just go back and watch some older videos or join my Patreon. I have information on that, how that works out. I'm not going to go through that right now. I'll make this a 5-hour video, okay? But we have all the stuff, or we can play tricks, right? So basically, we could just basically play, yeah, okay, he's going to come over and poach number 3, right? There's no read here anymore, okay? Or technically, I'm pretty sure in real life, if I'm not mistaken, just thinking about it, right? You could possibly go back to reading 1 and 2 if you have a tricks, right? So you could play palms over 1 and 2 with those 3 players, the corner, the nickel, and the safety. And then you can have your backside safety coming over and playing that. But you can't get the read here, unfortunately. You can get the backside cover 6, obviously, but you don't get the read. So that's the part that's a little bit funky. So if you want to really kind of make this realistic, this is the part that I'm going to propose, is to call palms. So you can still get over here, if you like it, you can still get this read over here. And now we're going to have to hot route the backside and play cover 2. All right. So that would be the adjustment. If you want to call this specific coverage back to 2x2, you have to be ready to potentially make audibles, all palms. So it's cover 4. And then get your backside over here into cover 2. You want to do that? Is it worth it? Maybe not. If you don't like it, just play 6. Okay, and you're gonna get all your regular quarters matching principles. You won't get any read. So that's something we have to think about with a lot of different coverages that we're going to be playing in this package. Is it worth it? All right, that's a question that you guys have. So on my play call sheet, right, I'm trying to have some stuff listed out just to kind of like remind you that if you want certain techniques, we can play it certain ways. Okay.